Absolutely. All right, that all being said, we're here for some neck and shoulders. These are two places that, other than the hips, are probably the most common things that we see issues with. So anytime that we're going through stuff, there'll be always one of us demonstrating up here and the other person walking around making sure that everybody, if you need a hand, flag us down, all that kind of stuff. So if you have questions, again, this is not like a yoga class. We expect you to have questions at times. So if you have them, please feel free to let us know and we'll try to teach you guys at the same time as giving you a full neck and shoulders experience today. That being said.
Only other golden rule, I'm just gonna repeat it for everybody, is please don't push through any kind of pain, okay? So everybody's range of motion is gonna be different and your stretch doesn't have to look like the person's next to you. We want you to work with what you've got and very importantly to stay away from anything that feels like what we call a closing angle restriction or a closing angle pain. So if I'm stretching my neck this way and I start to feel pinching or just very bunched up and restricted on the short side, that is what we want you to stay away from. If you need help staying away from that sort of sensation, generally the quickest fix is just to reduce the range of motion a little bit. If you need more help, reach out and let us know.
And at the same time, just because there are a few new people in the room, I'm Jesse.
Hi, new folks. Hi.
And this is Sean. So
Sean.
again, late showing up, or if you haven't met us before. Okay, all that being said, let's get things moving. So we're gonna start off with the neck, and we're gonna start to break some things down. You all look like you're in a nice, relatively comfortable seat, so you can stay right there. Whatever that seat looks like, the only thing that we want is to be sitting tall. So if you need to sit on your blocks or anything like that, feel free to use the blocks like a little stool, but sit in a position that's comfortable to you and that allows you to feel like you can be tall. All right?
Yeah, and if you get pins and needles in your feet, if you need to move, go ahead, okay? We're just focusing in on the neck for this, so you could even be standing if you needed to.
Absolutely. So with the neck, we're gonna break down what we call a car, but we're gonna go through this quite slowly. So I'm gonna pass it over to Sean, and Sean's gonna teach you the different elements of the way that the neck moves before we throw them all together into a pattern that explores everything.
Okay, so with all the exercises I'm just gonna run you through real quick. I want you to imagine that you're buried in sand up to your collarbones. So we're only really focusing in on the neck in isolation, which is something you might not have done before, and that's fine. So the first motion is neck flexion, and that involves shortening the front and finding a stretch through the back. So just join in and see if you can find that sensation of a stretch through the back. What most of us will do when I say flex your neck is this. We'll hinge from that thoracic cervical junction and take the whole neck into a kind of forward posture. I want you to really think about trying to sit up tall and round so that you actually create space through the back. Search for a sense of stretch and avoid any pinching. And just give me some nods. That's it. And then once you've got the hang of it, once you're feeling that stretch, flex and squeeze for a little more as if you're trying to squeeze out as much flexion as possible. Anybody getting any kind of pinching, any kind of pain? No, we good?
Okay, pause. Can you turn to the side just for some of the people in the front?
Whoop.
So as Sean's doing this and she's nodding, and it's for some of you, you may have not seen the difference between just dropping your chin down and actually trying to flex your neck. Most people that come to us, one of the things we see very, very often with the neck is that the neck itself, like up here through this, is very stuck, which means that it's not really moving, and all the movement, Sean's wearing a sweater, but basically,
Sorry. I'll take it off.
all of the movement is coming from this top junction here where basically the thoracic spine and the cervical spine come together. So you'll get a lot of movement right here, but everything up here is basically stuck, all right? So when you tuck your chin, instead of thinking about what your chin or your head is doing, actually imagine the skin on the back of your neck trying to reach up towards the ceiling. So everybody try that for one more, because again, I saw a lot of people who you thought you were doing it, but maybe we weren't actually getting any movement. And that just might mean that you're very tight. So instead of tucking your chin, think about reaching up through the back of your neck. Can you get that sensation of stretch? So that sensation of stretch, that's always what we're looking for here. Now, we're going to go into extension. So Sean will show you lifting into extension. Again, the same sort of problem occurs for most people, is that when you lift, you're just thinking about your head, and what happens is you just kind of collapse back. And this is where you're gonna get the most common closing angle pain, where you, instead of feeling anything in the front, you're gonna feel congestion or not so good stuff in the back. So once again, don't think about letting your chin lift. Think about trying to lift and stretch the skin on your throat as you lift the chin. And the chin definitely is moving, but that's not what I want you to focus on. Focus on feeling the stretch in the front of the neck. And then bring it back down. And the second that that kind of feels easy to control or connect to, then put the two together. So go from lifting and feeling the stretch in the front to tucking and feeling the stretch in the back, and just go back and forth. I know, super, super simple, nodding yes. All right, looks like people are starting to get the, does everybody feel like that's a little bit different than the normal way you just lift and lower your head? Okay,
Searching for the stretch.
Yeah, searching for that feeling of tension. Or something that feels like you're stuck, but it's on the long side, right? We always want to avoid any of that closing angle or restriction on the short side. So if you're falling back and you feel it back here, we don't want to do that. If we tuck down and you're feeling it in the front, we don't really want that. We want to find this tension on the long side.
All right, lateral?
Yes, lateral now, so don't worry about the tucking and lifting anymore. Now we're gonna go for that side to side, that next element of what the neck is capable of doing. So think about your ear getting closer to your shoulder. That's the movement. But then the tension is just like when we were doing that other stuff, is now you're gonna think about the side of your neck that's getting longer and imagine that side reaching up towards the ceiling.
I like to think somebody's actually trying to pick me up by my ear, reaching through that ear till I find the stretch.
It's like I'm a kid again and my grandma's catch me doing something wrong. So reach through, find that tension from side to side.
It's going to be really tempting to bring your shoulders up with you guys. Do your best to keep those shoulders down and just move from the neck.
Notice, I'm all looking around the room and we get a lot of shoulders that are swaying from side to side also. Try your very best to keep the rest of your body as still as you can. Again, the word is try. If it still moves, that's okay. Now notice if your chin is wanting to do weird things as you're going from side to side. Most of you will notice that as you go side to side, your chin either wants to tuck slightly or lift slightly, both of which are fine. But that's the reason why we start with flexion extension, is because flexion and extension are the primary movements or the deepest movements that the neck does.
All right, rotation.
All right, pick a spot straight in front of you and then turn your chin as far to one side and then turn it as far to the other side as you can. Rotation is a little less simple because you're getting stretches on both sides of the neck as you do this. So my cue to you while you go from side to side is continue to feel tall. So imagine that somebody's got a string attached to the top of your head and is pulling the top of your head up as you try to rotate as far one way as you can and then to the other side.
Finding a sense of stretch. Everyone's like, oh, I've never moved my neck like this before. It's okay. The reason we're starting with this real basic stuff, guys, is in order to be able to train something efficiently, we first have to be able to move it. And I mean move it in isolation. If we can't connect to it, we can't train it. So just getting specific about the stuff we want to train today. All right, lateral flexion and rotation together, okay?
Let's put the whole thing together.
Put the whole thing together.
All right, so we're going to take all of those things, the flexion, the extension, the lateral flexion, and the rotation, And now we're gonna put it together and teach you, most of you have done a global car before, but if you haven't, this is what we call a global neck car. Sean's demonstrating it already, and this is just an expression of all those movements happening at the same time. Okay, looks like a neck circle, but we're being more intentional with what we're doing. Okay, we're not just letting our head bobble around, we're actually trying to connect to all those elements that we just went through. So, Sean starts off by tucking her chin, feeling the stretch in the back of her neck. Then she's rotating, then she's lateral flexing, then she's rotating into extension, continues to rotate, laterally flexes, then she starts to tuck, and then she rotates into flexion in the front. Okay, so the easiest way, instead of trying to think about all those individual cues, is imagine that there was a red dot on your chin. And you had your own individual camera sitting right in front of you, and you're trying to draw the biggest circle you can to that camera in front of you with that red dot that's on your chin. All while trying not to move your shoulders. That's the hard part for most.
That's where it gets a little squirrely. And still looking for the long side of the stretch to feel like a stretch. So it becomes a dynamic, moving stretch, expressing your pain-free range of motion that you have in your neck right now. And if you're dealing with any pinching or pain, just avoid that little quadrant of the calf for now.
A healthy neck would feel a stretch just shifting around their neck the whole time that they did this. If you don't have a healthy neck, what you're probably feeling is you'll notice a stretch in certain areas, and then you'll notice other things like a blind spot where you just don't really feel anything, or a stuck spot where it just feels like you're hitting a wall or some sort of invisible barrier and you just can't go any further. Those two feelings, either the blind spot or the stuck spot, those are two signs where the tissue just is not healthy and needs to be coaxed into some organization. All right, so that's where stretching comes in handy.
Just make a little note of any of those points for yourself, guys. Where is your neck pinching? Where are you not feeling a stretch? Where does it feel good? Because your car is actually your assessment. When people train with us, we get them to do their cars every day. One for just joint maintenance, getting the blood flow in there, maintaining range of motion, but also for a continual assessment of where you need to work. All right. Hinge points.
Well, not hinge points specifically with the blocks. So we're gonna need that block now, and I'm gonna get Sean to lie down, but I'm gonna seal her blocks and show you guys how to set your blocks up. So you're gonna take one block flat and then the other block on an angle, creating this sort of a little ledge, okay? And then we're going to use this edge of the block to be a contact point in the neck so that we can start to break down, or give you a tool anyways, that when you go home, if you've got some yoga blocks or anything like yoga blocks, that you can start to set up a way to more fine-tune your neck. Because everybody here is gonna have different spots in their neck that don't work right, all right? So Sean's gonna lie down and we're gonna take this edge. We need the edge because it's going to start to connect. And the first spot that almost everybody holds some tension is everybody, before you lie down and find the same position, find that nice bump on the back of everyone's skull. That signifies where the spine comes up and attaches to the skull. Okay, so we're gonna find the spot just underneath that bump. Okay, so that bump, or just under that bump, is right where we wanna put that edge of the block. Okay?
Right at the top of your neck.
So lie on down and find the edge of the block right at that spot. Now these are stiff-ish foam. I like an even stiffer block if I can have one. We just don't have enough cork blocks, and that would be a pain in the ass carrying around that many cork blocks for all you. But if you do have something stiffer at home, that would also be helpful to sometimes feel that edge a little bit more. But take a second, find that edge, and then all I want you to do once you've found that spot is to slowly rotate from right to left. So keeping that edge right on that spot, rotate from one side to the other. Relaxing everything else as best you can. Now, so the bump, and then just under the bump is where the edge is. Now for most of you probably feel some tension in that spot, which is normal. Got some thumbs up already.
Yeah.
Okay, take a second as you scan from side to side and notice where that spot is the most tender. So, and then just stop with your head turned in that angle. Okay, so we're rotating right to left. And then once you find a spot that feels tense, stay there. Okay, so we're going to introduce some iso ramping here. So this is iso ramping is a way we can start to work with our nervous system to try to down regulate where it's been turned up too high. You can also work on turning it up where it's been turned too low, but generally in the neck that's not the problem. So with this spot, once you've pinned it down, once you've got that spot that feels the most tender to you, and again, it doesn't have to be painful or anything, it just feel tension. Now you're going to tune into your breathing. Our breathing is a way for us to regulate our nervous system quite easily. I just want you to breathe in for a 4 count, and then try to breathe out for a 6 to 8 count. Now, if that ratio doesn't work to you, the big thing here is I want your exhale longer than your inhale. All right, so maybe you breathe in for 3, out for 6. Maybe you breathe in for 4, out for 8. That 1 to 2 ratio is nice. If that's too much, then maybe it's breathe in for 3, breathe out for 5. Maybe it's breathe in for 4, breathe out for 6. We just need the exhale longer than the inhale. See if you can find that rhythm. We're going to be doing this in a couple different, or in another spot as well later on. So don't forget this breathing technique. We will bring it back. But then there's another thing that if we can, we tie in a flex and relax with our breath. Okay? So if you can, and again, not everybody's going to be able to isolate this spot, but because you can feel that edge of the block on that spot, you're going to try to think about the tension in that spot, and when you inhale, you're going to try to make that spot even more tense or flex that spot. And when you exhale, you're going to stop flexing that spot and imagine you could melt around the block. Okay? Because the problem with chronically tight muscles is that when you tell someone to flex and when you tell yourself to flex a muscle, you have something that you can do. So then relaxing is the contrast to that. If I just tell you to relax, but it's chronically tight, your body just doesn't know what that means. So you need to do the flex first while you inhale, and you need to do the try to relax or melt or let go on the exhale. All right, if that spot that you were on is no longer tense, then scan again, roll from side to side, see if you can find another spot. And then go right back into that same thing. Inhale, exhale longer, flex on the inhale, relax or melt on the exhale. Good, we'll give you another 30 seconds. And I'm going to suggest that this tool is something you play, if you've got neck issues, this is a good tool to play around with because we've all picked that spot just underneath that occipital lobe, which is that point at the back of the skull. We've picked that spot there, but you can move the edge of that block down to any other segment in your neck and do the same thing. Okay? So if you know that you have a spot that gets really stuck somewhere in the middle of your neck, you can just shift the edge of that block to that spot and then do the same scan side to side until you find the tight tissue, and then you go through the breathing. Inhale, flex, exhale, relax. Inhales are half the length of the exhales. This is a tool to put in your toolbox that is very, very useful. All right, take a second. Roll back and forth again a few times, and then we're going to come off of the block, and then we're going to show you a couple stretches that we can do for the block or front of the neck as well before we move on to the good old shoulder blades and the shoulder. Okay, again, Good idea to sit on your blocks again and find a comfortable seat. If you really don't like sitting, you can always stand up for this next one as well. But again, the only stipulation is we want you to have a nice tall spine. So if you want to sit, stand, however it feels good to keep that spine nice and long. So we've moved the neck, we've given you a tool that helps you pinpoint specific areas in the neck that might not feel good. Now the next thing is we're going to break the neck up into 4 quadrants. So we call this the quadrant stretches. So most common spot that we feel tension is in that back, right and left. So we're going to start off with that. So to get into this stretch, we start off by tucking the chin. Then we're going to do the right side first. So we're going to turn, so keep the chin tucked, turn the chin to the right, and then we're going to lateral flex to the left. So tuck, turn right, lateral flex to the left, or left ear gets lower. Your hands can come to your chin or your head, and you're going to reach up through the back right side of your neck.
Something to note, guys, is that the stretch doesn't really work unless you keep the flexion, unless you keep the tuck. So I like to put my right thumb on my chin and remind myself to keep my neck tucked as I rotate, even as I laterally flex. Because if I stick my chin out here, I lose the stretch. So use your hands to guide yourself, tuck, rotate, and then my left hand comes on top to aid that lateral flexion.
Again, this can be tough, but think of where you want to feel the tension, which is the back right side of your neck. That back right side of your neck should feel like it's reaching up to the ceiling. Okay? All right, and we're just holding this stretch and again, keep holding it. We've got a minute on the timer.
So no pinching or pain on the left-hand side. If you feel that, you just need to back up out of it a little.
Again, you may or may not need the hands there to help.
Oh, go away, sorry.
And if anybody hasn't found the stretch yet, I am walking around, so you can always wave me down. Now, an additional cue here, can you find that stretch? Mm-hmm. Is because we're stretching the back right side of the neck, if you've got the connection to it, think about your right shoulder going towards the floor. So think about that right shoulder blade more specifically, trying to descend down the back towards your hips. Okay, so that just pulls on that tissue from the other end. 3, 2, 1. To come out of a neck stretch, tuck your chin to your sternum, and then lift and lower your head like you're nodding yes again, just a few times. Again, flexion extension is the foundational movements of the neck. So anytime you come out of a stretch, it's always a good idea to just give that nodding a second to bring things back to some sense of normal.
Everybody find it? Find some sense of a stretch? Cool.
All right, we got to do the same thing on the other side. So we tuck the chin.
Tuck.
This time, turn to the left, and then lateral flex to the right. Okay, and then think about that back left side of the neck like something is reaching up towards the ceiling. Finding that stretch. Got the timer going. So yeah, tuck, turn left, lateral flex right.
Lefts and rights always get confusing at this point, guys. It's okay. Do the other side.
It never ceases to amaze me that I work with people all day long, every day of all ages, and there's so many people that don't know their rights and lefts.
You included sometimes. Keep that chin tucked, keep reaching through your ear. Shoulder blade slides down the back. This side is way tighter for me. Anybody noticing a difference side to side? Yep.
It's very normal. And again, as you lean to that side, do your best to keep that shoulder from following. Yep. There we go.
Yeah, your neck is moving, but you're trying to keep the rest of your spine still. So it's really
3, 2, 1. Slowly coming out of there.
tuck chin, come
Lift
out.
and lower. Now, believe it or not, getting the back of the neck sorted out is far easier than the next part, which is the front of the neck. So this next part, don't worry if you don't get it right away. It's generally where we're quite tight, but it's also harder to connect to. So we did both halves of the back. Now we're going to do both halves of the front. And we get into it almost the same way, except for we go into extension first rather than tucking the chin. So it's a lift. Again, look for the stretch in the throat first. Then it's a turn to the right because we're going to stretch the front right first. And then it's, again, a lateral flex to the left. So it's always a rotation one way and then lateral flex the other way. Now, the stretch here we want to try to find is somewhere around the back of the ear down towards the collarbone, okay? So you want to think about that front right side or that front right quadrant reaching up to the ceiling, and we want to feel that stretch in this nice thick muscle that's in the front of the neck.
You guys getting that?
You may need your hands, you may not. More often than not, you don't need your hands in this one, but keep reaching up. Now there's a weird cue that can intensify it, but be careful with this cue, is pretend like you're about to yawn. So protrude the bottom of your jaw like you're going for an underbite. And then that'll increase the scalene, which is the muscle that the very thin muscle that lies on the top of the throat. It'll actually get a little bit of a stretch in there as well. But it can make it quite intense for some people.
So if you were gonna feel restriction or pinching, it would be on the back left side of your neck because we're opening up the front right. So we want to avoid any pinching or pain on like the back left side of the neck.
Good.
And if you feel that, just come out of the range of motion a little bit.
And for a lot of people, even though more often than not, when people complain about their neck being stiff, they complain about the back of their neck being stiff. But for a lot, it's because this front stuff is very unhealthy. So don't ever think that, oh, well, I'm never tight, I don't feel tight in the front, that means I don't need to worry about this stuff. More people are weak here because of how much we tuck our chin with phones and driving and computers and all the things we do in front of us and all that neck flexion, that this stuff gets very weak. And learning to lengthen it is the first step to strengthening it. 3, 2, 1. Slowly tuck the chin to the sternum and then lift and lower again, just again to find that kind of bringing the neck back to some sense of normal. And then we have one quadrant left, so we're going to go to that front left side. So once again, it's lift, turn to the side that you want to stretch, and then lateral flex away from the side that you're wanting to stretch. So lift, turn to the left, lateral flex to the right. Thinking about that stretch from the back of the ear down to the collarbone, and we're trying to reach up through that tissue we want to feel the stretch in. If you've ever had a massage therapist massage this muscle, you know how tight it can get. Again, don't feel afraid to wave me down if you're struggling to find it. This is another one where thinking about that earlobe being pulled up to the ceiling on that side can help quite a bit. So sometimes it's linking through that tissue through the neck, or even imagining that earlobe could be pulled up. If you've never stretched your neck before, these 1-minute holds are probably seem like an eternity. Mm-hmm. And we'll keep it to 1 minute today, but in truth, if we had unlimited time, we'd be doing 2 minutes.
Or 2 sets of 1 minute at least.
Yeah. All right, 3, 2, 1, come out of there, tuck that chin, lift and lower.
All right.
All right, we've given you all the basic tools now to start to fine tune the way your actual cervical spine starts to move. So connecting to the way that it moves, fine-tuning it with the edge of the block in order to find those specific niggly spots that need to learn how to relax, and then the quadrant stretches, which starts to pull and organize that tissue. All right?
Do a little neck car, see how it feels.
Yeah, go through that global neck car and see how everything is feeling. Hopefully it feels a little smoother at least.
This stuff isn't magic though, so you are gonna have to repeat it if you want that neck car to improve over time. Like what Jesse was saying, we did a minute. That probably felt like quite a long time for a lot of you. You need to start thinking of your flexibility and mobility training like you do your other workouts. So doing sets, multiple sets, working towards several sets of 1 minute. Like we know the minimal sort of effective dose is 2 minutes, and you can work up to 5. Like 5 would be a great 5-minute dose would be great, but you can break that up into sets. So when you
And spread it through your day.